Don't tell us how we can spend our cash or our digital or electronic, whatever. Give us the choice.
Hello, everyone. We are here with Lonnie Talbert, CEO of the ATM Industry Association. Lonnie, I know that you are not an ATM operator, but you are in the industry. And I notice in your profile, you have a lot of experience on banking and as a president or a lot of chambers I can see.
Yeah.
But tell us something about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. Lonnie C. Talbert. I am the CEO of ATMIA, 35-year career in banking and financial services. My last position before I joined ATMIA about 3.5 years ago was president of a community bank in New Mexico. I had worked for a number of money center banks and really was responsible for all the operational units. So when this chance came about to lead the largest global ATM Industry Association, representing the likes of you and ATM owner operators, processors, hardware, software, peripherals around the globe, it was a great opportunity to sort of take what I'd already been doing and now really focus on a specific industry, which is the ATM industry.
That's excellent. What is ATMIA?
Yeah, so ATMIA, ATM International, ATM Industry International Association, because we operate globally, is the largest global ATM association that represents the ATM industry. So automated teller machines, ATM cash machines, deposit takers, kiosks, you name it, any and all facets of the ATM industry. We are a collective voice, membership-driven, membership value organization that represents all of our members and all of the industry regardless. So we don't just pick and choose and say, hey, you're a member and therefore, we won't represent people who aren't. What we do is we say, hey, what's best for the ATM industry, whether it be around education, advocacy, whether it be our conferences, whether it be networking and bringing like-minded people together. It's really important that we have members, obviously, that help us gather the necessary resources in order to make sure that we're doing our job to the utmost financial ability, as well as representing all of you who get the job done day in and day out in the field.
Are we a chapter or is it the international side is in America?
Yeah, so we are global, and ATMIA is the overall governing body. We have 2 employees that work for us in London, who represent the Europe and emerging markets. And then we have 7 of us that operate here in the States, 2 in Florida, and actually 4 in South Dakota and 1 in Minnesota. So, but they're all close together up there in the Midwest. But we operate and handle basically 70 different countries and roughly 480 member companies and over 5,000 members.
That's excellent. What should we expect as an independent ATM operator and ATMIA?
Yeah, so what we do is, and actually it's a great question because 60% of our membership represents independent ATM deployers, IADs for short. And what you should expect from us is the support, the advocacy, the education, and the overall benefits that we help to make sure that the collective body of ATM owner operators has one voice and one opportunity to make sure that everyone understands, the legislation and the different state items as well as federal items that can negatively or positively affect the ATM industry. EMV, when EMV came out 15 years ago, we were a big part of that. We had an entire 8-year project around next gen ATM, or what we call now gen, because NFC and contactless and using your phone to go to an ATM, those are all things that are happening today. That's no longer the future. That's happening now. So as an independent deployer, we want to hear from you. We want to know what's important to you and make sure that what we're doing helps meet those needs. Any legislation that revolves or any sunsetting, like from Microsoft 10 to Microsoft 11, right? And changes in all of those kind of PCI compliance issues. We're a part of all of those things.
So if we are not ready collectively as an industry with our keypads, we should bring that up to you guys and say, hey, we need time or something in that nature.
Yeah, definitely. So that way we can make sure and share it with whether it be the hardware providers, whether it be the state governments, the federal government, making sure they're aware, because many times, legislation is enacted and it has to be continually pushed out. Real ID, for example, right, has nothing to do with the ATM industry. However, it does because of, when you go to open a bank account, now they want everyone to have a real ID. Well, that kept being pushed out years and years because the states weren't ready. We want to make sure that our members and that the industry is ready for any regulatory change, and that everyone has the right amount of time to make sure they can be compliant.
Do you see any transformation in the industry on terms of regulations? Let's go there first.
Yeah, so I think regulatory, we're helping push safe access to cash, which would actually make an ATM crime a federal crime. Today, an ATM crime is a property crime. It's not considered like a bank robbery. And U.S. currency is kept in ATMs. So therefore, it should be a federal crime. So we're trying to get that pushed along to make sure that if a person robs a person at an ATM or robs an ATM physically or with jackpotting or with malware or something that's electronic in nature, that it's treated like federal bank robbery, a federal crime. And so, that's a big part, as well as Payment Choice Act, which allows cash to continue to be used wherever we want to use it. Consumer choice. Let the consumer decide. Don't tell us how we can spend our cash or our digital or electronic, whatever. Give us the choice.
That is way over my head, a lot of the legislation. How soon do you think we are from that moment that legislation will go through and say, hey, if you rob an ATM, the feds are going after you?
Yeah, so that's a great question because we have been pushing this kind of legislation for the last 5 years. The industry has said, hey, we need to take care of ATM owner, operators, deployers, everyone, right? So we're always hopeful for every legislative session, but right now the federal government shut down, so nothing's happening, right? So we believe, we feel good that this legislative session that we have a good chance of pushing, payment choice and safe access to cash through. However, the old joke, moving at the pace of government, that's what's happening right now. We're moving at their pace, and we'll continue to advocate. We'll continue to get a hold of, and the industry, individuals such as yourself, have to reach out to your own congressmen and women and senators and say, hey, this is important for me as a business owner for you to take a look at this and help it pass.
Yes. How is ATM IA adapting to the rise of digital payments and mobile banking?
Yeah, so we believe through the next gen platform and through sort of what you mentioned about where we headed, through payment choice, through digital, through electronic, online, mobile, the phone is access to everything. We want to make sure that the phone is connected and accessible with the ATM device. We want to make sure that all of the ATM owner operators are able to get the technology that would allow an individual to go up with a pre-planned transaction, not just at the financial institution. So at Chase, you can do that already, or maybe Wells or B of A, but independent deployers such as yourself who have ATMs around your community have that same capability. Have the consumer, the individual, have the ability to do functions at the ATM device that they would do on their phone. Maybe they want to transfer money. Maybe they want to make an electronic payment. All of that technology exists. We just have to make sure it's available and accessible and that it's affordable so that everyone can have access to that and use that real estate for its highest and best use.
I think that is great. I think that's where we're tending to, and NFC is here now, right? It's just more, what are we going to do as independent operators to put that out? It's
totally. I mean, with contactless, it's there, right?
Yes.
Contactless is already here. And
is cash truly disappearing, or is it just a narrative that is overblown?
I think it's a narrative that's overblown. I think that, when I started in banking 35, 40 years ago, everyone's like, we're getting rid of checks. Well, I don't know about you, but I actually wrote a check last week. I had someone who said, I'd like a check. I still have a checkbook. So checks aren't gone. And that was talked about 40 years ago. Cashier's checks are still used and needed at home loan closings. So I think cash is the same way. I think people start a narrative and they want to believe just because things are declining. Well, things ebb and flow all the time. And so from my perspective, rather than tell me how I should use the payments ecosystem, allow me, payment choice, to make that decision, allow the business to be able to accept cash and be able to, the consumer, use it wherever they want. So I think it's an overblown narrative. Is cash on the decline? At times it is. At other times it's not. And for individuals, it's always an individual choice. I use all three. I use cash, I use my phone, I use a card. Don't tell me how to spend. Allow me to choose what's the best method. When I tip people that come to my house, I tip them in cash. Why? Because that's very personal to be able to give them cash. And I still love giving my adult children once in a while. I'll give them $100 bill. They're like, wow, what is that? I'm like, hey, that's cash. That's currency.
It's like they start spanning. Oh, it's this size.
Right.
How,
Benjamin, have fun with it.
I don't know how much knowledge you have in this, but I think it's a good question to ask. How do ATM trends differ across regions like Europe, North America, and Asia?
Yeah. So each country, each region, each continent has varying degrees of differences, if you will. Some are farther along with certain technologies. Others are farther along with other technologies. But the reality is we're all aligned when it comes to allow us to use cash, allow cash to continue to be a part of the payments ecosystem. Don't put your head in the sand and think that, nothing else is happening around you, but say, hey, how do we embrace it all? And how do we make sure that either as an owner operator or as an association that we're meeting the needs of all our members and making sure that their voice is heard? And so, in certain places, for example, Sweden, at one point, they're like, we're going to be a cashless society. Well, a funny thing happens when you choose to go that direction. When you have a major system outage or a major power outage or a malware attack, all of a sudden, what happens to your digital economy? Everybody's like, ooh, I need to go back to using cash.
Yeah.
So rather than say you're going to be all of one thing or all of another, why don't you just say, hey, let's just allow everyone to utilize whatever the best method is for them.
I love traveling, and when I go to all other countries, I always notice ATMs, and I always notice them being used. In Europe, there's in every corner you can see 2 or 3 machines. In Asia, you can see it in every convenience store you can see. So there is a usage of cash, and the same in our cities in America.
Yeah. I mean, I always take pictures like you when I travel. I take pictures of the ATMs and I send them back to my team, or we post them and say, hey, Lonnie's in Greece. Hey, here's a Greece ATM. Or, hey, Lonnie was in London getting cash, or, whatever. So I think that it's important that, we recognize that, certain facets of the ATM business are the same no matter where you're at. Others are just regionally specific, as you mentioned, depending on what the overall economics and or whatever the socioeconomic situations are in those particular locations and communities.
Yeah, the next question, in America, we can see it as operators that it applies a lot, and we don't know how it is in other countries. But what roles do ATM play in financial inclusion, especially in underserved communities?
100%, they play a huge role, right? Because even if you're unbanked, if you will, or in a lot of communities, a lot of banks are pulling out. A lot of banks are closing their brick and mortar. What we're seeing in Europe is a lot of banking hubs. And so banks coming together, working with third-party deployers to put together a banking locale that individuals in that community can go to. And the ATM is at the heart of that, right? So it's the same thing. Whether you have an ATM at a bodega, whether you have an ATM at a C-store, at a liquor store, make sure you have ATMs in locations where there may not be a bank. And that inclusion is there, right? We want to make sure that everyone always has access to an ATM. And it's funny or sad. When I was in banking, we had a location in Lovington, New Mexico, which is in the middle of nowhere down south in southern New Mexico. And our ATM that we had from my bank was the busiest ATM because there were no banks. And when the wildcatters would come in off the oil rigs, that's where they would go immediately to get money from their paychecks. So You want to be inclusive, and you want to make sure that you're looking for those locations where maybe there aren't brick and mortar banks, but at least they have access to an ATM that they can pull out funds and go about conducting commerce.
Yeah, we see that a lot. And like the good markets for us are those where we are the bank.
Right.
We are the bank, and
Yes.
we are the source of funds for a lot of economies.
100%. And I think people forget about that, but it's an important role that you and others play in doing that.
Let's talk a little bit about security and innovation. What are the latest innovations in the ATM security and fraud prevention?
So another great question. We have a group within our group called the ATM Security Association. We merged it last year, and we have a global fraud database that we use to track any kind of ATM fraud around the country. And we want to make sure that we're always populating it so that we give free access to law enforcement. But what we're seeing today is still a lot of physical ATM attacks. You have jackpotting, you have infected malware, you have obviously card skimming. Those are all sort of the heavy things, and it's a constant battle to try to keep up with against the criminals. Obviously, good old fashioned awareness is the first and best defense. So make sure every time you go up to one of your ATMs, you check it for skimming devices. You'll be able to see, it'll be an overlay on top of various components. Or sometimes they put a really tiny camera up in the lip to check PIN numbers and to gather card data. Look at that. Make sure when you're cleaning your ATMs, you're making yourself aware. Make sure that you have the latest updates of whatever your software is, or whatever hardware you're running, or whatever hardware you have, whatever software is from the provider, that it's up to date. Changing your passwords, believe it or not. Some people still have default passwords from when they bought the machine, or they have default keys. Change the locks. Get new keys. Simple things you can do, and constantly, again, making sure that your software, your Windows, is up to date with all of its security patches.
So, as an association, if we see an attack at the East Coast, Chicago, we see a lot of that. You guys are letting the members, ATM deployers, know that something is happening?
Well, you can go to, as a member, you can gain access to our database, and you can go see what the trends are in a particular state, county, neighborhood. It drills down and will show you that. You can also put in those kind of incidences, report them, so that we can continue to gain knowledge from that, share that with law enforcement, and then share that with our members. So as a member, every quarter, we share a security report from our CCMIS that says what the largest challenges are we're having, not only in every region, but every country and every state around, what the highest kind of incidences are.
That's excellent, because we want to see how close we are from those markets, right? And then we're ready.
Well, and you want to know if there's something happening in your state or your city or your neighborhood, or if it's even in a neighboring state. Criminals go to where the easiest targets are, and a lot of times they move around. Okay, we helped, with the help of Maryland, with the Prince George's County Police, stop a Jaws of Life ring that was hitting 7-Elevens. So 7-Eleven, the group that runs their ATMs, as a member, reached out to us. We put together a quick task force. That task force brought together law enforcement, and they were actually able to shut that ring down, catch those criminals. Now they just moved somewhere else, but we started there, and we will continue and help with any way we can, trying to stop with awareness and getting a hold of law enforcement so they can take proper action.
So then we see action, because as an operator, sometimes we don't see action, and that's the part that is disappointing.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, again, unfortunately, in your local neighborhood, if you call and say, "Hey, my ATM was stolen or attacked or vandalized," property crime, right? Important, but most of the time, police are focused on other things, right? But when they can gather and see a trend, all of a sudden now they can say, wow, maybe we can do something about this. And that's what we can help sort of with, making sure everyone has that knowledge.
That's important to be part of the association. There's a lot of value.
It is. I mean, I believe, obviously I'm biased as as a CEO, but we really do provide member value, especially for those who may not have access to larger resources, right? Or a whole network of people to contact. As a member of ATMIA, you'll gain access to our member database. You'll then be able to reach out to other members who maybe have the same kind of situations you do, and you can partner up, work together, understand. People think it's competitive. Well, at the end of the day, the ATM device really hasn't changed in the last 50 years. It either checks a balance, dispenses cash, maybe takes a deposit, has contactless or not, or EMV. But if you're getting hit or you're having challenges with your Gen Mega or your Hyosung or your Diebold or your NCR, someone else may be having that same problem.
Yeah.
And if you can reach out to them and talk to them, it can help you maybe.
Yeah. How is AI or machine learning being integrated into the ATM operations?
Yeah. So we, at our last conference, we had our keynote speaker talked about AI and talked about how fast machine learning, agentic AI, all of those things are progressing. And so it's on a case-by-case basis. But I will tell you, all of the national companies are using AI on a daily basis. A lot of the larger ATM deployers, we had a webinar about 2.5 months ago that we brought on our member AI expert who talked about how you can use it. We have an ROI model on our ATMIA website now that allows you to say what is the payback of an ATMIA membership, but also to help you run sort of some analysis. We have a chat bot specifically. So I would say it's being utilized a lot. If you look at DPL, Hercules, if you look at Morphus, you look at all these different companies, they're all using AI a lot and really starting to roll it out. ATM owner operators using AI to check cash management, to check route schedules, to figure out what the most optimal placement of your ATM may be. So those kind of things. What's the most optimal surcharge for an area? It's being used a lot and more every day.
Yeah, I guess as a collective group, it would be nice to understand how are we all using it in little silos, right, to make it a bigger product.
Yeah.
What's been the most challenging decision as a president of ATMIA?
I think that any time you have regulation, you have regulatory challenges. Those are always difficult decisions to make, and not because they're not the right decision, but you have a lot of different constituencies that you may or may not be affecting by any one piece of legislation. You'll hear things like unintended consequences, right? So you may say, hey, this is the best thing to do today, but is it the best thing for the future, or right? Or it may be beneficial to one member, but not to a number. So I think those are always challenging. I think, determining at times, what the best approach is in terms of new technology. How fast does it adapt? How fast do we adopt it? How quick can we help, facilitate those kind of things? I think those are always difficult decisions to make. Again, not hard because they're the right decision, but hard because the audiences that you affect at times are vast and not always they don't always have the same consequences at the end.
Yeah. On the future of the industry, what's your take on crypto ATMs and their potential impact?
Yeah, so I'm bullish on any and all things ATM, right? I think that crypto ATMs, Bitcoin, whatever you want to call it, have had ups and downs, peaks and valleys. But I think that, giving again the consumer the choice of how they want to conduct their commerce. If they want to be able to buy Bitcoin at an ATM, as long as the right regulations in place, then they should be able to. I think there's a lot of, again, like anything, there's always going to be a few bad actors, right? But we have to be aware of that. But we also don't have to make unrealistic regulatory decisions because of one or two offs, right? Let's make sure that we're being smart, commonsensical about the decisions we make. But I think that, crypto is here to stay. I think that people, want to have an opinion about it like we all do, right? But I'm really comfortable and confident that each state is addressing it. Federally, it's being addressed. But the owner-operator also wants to make sure that what they're doing meets the needs of the community that they're serving. So I think crypto's here to stay. Again, peaks and valleys, ups and downs. Bitcoin was 130,000. Now it's down to 100,000. So just like the stock market, you just got to be willing to understand exactly what you're getting into if you choose to to do that.
For the people that are new into the industry, or they're looking into getting in the industry, what do you see how the ATMs can evolve as a financial institution kiosk or more than a cash provider?
Yeah, well, I think the whole self-service dimension of ATMs, utilizing that real estate, whether it be with digital toppers, whether it be with wrapping, whether it be with advertising, finding alternative revenue sources for that particular ATM that still supports the community. So if you have an ATM in a liquor store, maybe there's a C-store down the block, or maybe there's a cannabis shop, and I'm not making a political statement about that. I'm just saying it's a fact, right? What's in your community? Maybe they want to advertise about things that are going on, right? So looking for alternative revenue streams, looking at the technology that you can use that piece of real estate on, whether it be the phone, or whether you're adding Bitcoin, or whether you're allowing transfers, or maybe you're doing money transfers in the future, partnering with Monex, or maybe partnering with MoneyGram or Western Union and allowing, or maybe you're doing a reverse cash situation, right? Where I've seen those where you're putting cash in, getting a card out because a place you're using doesn't accept cash, but you can still use your cash to get the card to still conduct commerce. So I think the sky's the limit. It really comes down to obviously resources and cost. What are the economics? And sometimes it takes a little time for the economics to catch up with the actual technology.
It up, I guess, here. What is something that had inspired you to get involved into the ATM industry?
Well, again, having been a banker for 35 years, being in financial services, wanting to help, the financial inclusion, understanding, who is sort of kept out of the ecosystem because of situations that others make decisions on. I think that's critically important. I think being the voice for a collective body, helping that group sort of be recognized and heard, because the individual ATM owner operator by themselves, can go out and can talk to their congressman or woman or senator or their local council person. But when you have a collective body that we can help represent, that voice is even stronger. So that sort of brought me in and inspired me too. And then just, again, being able to watch any industry evolve and sort of continue to move forward, recognizing that, we all have to with the changing times, if you will.
Since you've seen a lot and you see a lot of the manufacturers or companies pushing technology, if you could redesign the ATM experience from scratch, what would that look like for you, Lonnie?
I think convenience, I think simplicity, and I think making the phone your mini ATM that becomes your ATM when you walk up to the device. So when you walk up to the device, you can have already structured what you want to do, what you want to accomplish when you get up to that ATM, making it simplistic, easy, and convenient, because that less frictionless and simpler, I think, resonates with the consumer strongly. I know it resonates with me, and I'm a consumer.
Yeah, that would
just
be,
like you.
That would be nice if I can tell my Amazon, Siri, whatever I use, hey, I want to get $20 out. Once I approach the ATM, dispense it.
Right. 100%.
Now,
right? It already knows through your passcodes, through your biometrics, it knows you. It's already done the security. Okay. So therefore, it should become frictionless. It recognizes you through geoscaping. When you walk up, all of a sudden it says, hey, Lonnie, you're here.
There you go.
This is what you wanted. Here's your $20.
There you go. That sounds great. Why join the ATMIA?
Well, I think for all the things we just discussed for the last 30 minutes, I think that, if you listen to that and it resonates with you, I think it's a pretty easy, cost benefit, if you will, and by joining, it also allows you to go to our conference, which we hold every year in February, as well as one in the fall, but we're looking to change that for the Europe and emerging markets. We're going to probably move that to probably mid-year. But all of those things we discussed, I think those are incredible benefits to an ATM owner, operator, independent deployer, and gaining access to a worldwide network of ATM owner operators, peripherals, processors, hardware providers, software providers, security issues, all of those things. I think make it a very strong value proposition. In addition, coming to our annual conference, we have over 100 exhibitors on a exhibit hall floor that is massive, and 1,000 people that attend. So that networking opportunity alone, I don't think you can put a real price on.
Yeah, full disclosure for me, this is the first time that I'm heading to ATMIA. I'm pretty excited
that's
about.
great, though.
I'm pretty excited about the networking. I think networking is what we get the most out of it. We know what's what's happening in the industry, and networking is where we create business. So,
well, you should look at if you've joined, you should look at our emerging leaders group, because that is it's not just about it's about new entrants either into the market, new entrants at ATMIA, so that way you can get an immediate network. We have that meeting on the Tuesday. We're going to have it from 4 to 5. It's a nice little non-threatening 100+ people just talking ATMs. We have a number of different committees that represent a number of different interests. And then our education tracks, as well as our keynotes and all of our different classes, are amazing, really, really positive and help. But that networking on the exhibit floor, oh man, you can't beat that.
Yeah, that is true. If any of our listeners want to get a hold of you, Lonnie, where can they find you?
Please, Lonnie.Talbert@atmia.com. That's my email. Easiest way, you can check me out on LinkedIn. Again, Lonnie Talbert. I'm on LinkedIn, ATMIA. Those are the easiest ways to really get a hold of me, via email, Lonnie.Talbert@atmia.com.
Lonnie, I appreciate all the information that you have given us. I think is valuable, and I think anybody who's started or people of experience have learned a lot from you today. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you reaching out and LinkedIn me and coming to the conference. I'm excited to meet you in person in February in Arlington, Texas.
We'll do that. We'll do the handshake out there. Thank you.
Excellent. I appreciate it.
You have a good day.
You too.